Since the corporation commissioned its new treatment plant at Burwood Beach in June, there's been a nasty smell hanging over Merewether from time to time. Now the corporation believes it knows what's making Merewether on the nose.
Basically, it's a build-up of waste in the tank behind us. We have waste going over the top, and it's building up around the outside, and that's going off, causing large amounts of smell to come out of the top.
By Christmas, that should all change. $70,000 will be spent on the tank to make it smell-proof, and if that doesn't work, there's a $600,000 alternative.
We're putting in new pipe work which will increase the flows over the tank to make sure it clears itself. If that doesn't work, and we expect it does, but if it doesn't, we're going to put a roof on the tank itself, which will catch all the gases, we'll then take them away, scrub them, clean them up and release them in the atmosphere.
The winners of the annual school competition were announced by Chairman of the Hunter Valley Research Foundation, Professor Michael Carter. 17-year-old Bradley Ray from Newcastle Adventist School took out the major award for his work on the quality of water in the Williams River. The prize included school library books worth $250 and 2 weeks paid work experience at the research centre during the school break. Highly commended were Debbie Judge from Avondale, Matthew Holland from Warners Bay and Susie Laidler representing Rutherford High. The months of hard work will be published and sent to the region's high schools.
That work is then used as a model for students who are doing research in these areas in the future.
For Bradley, the chance to work hands-on at the Research Foundation will be the start of a future career.
With the work experience that I'll get, it'll be good for my resume and just good for, when I go for a job interview.
Justice Michael Kirby was in Newcastle last night to speak about Australia's need to confront human rights abuses on our own doorstep.
Strike at the heart of the problem that has exposed so many Aboriginal people to prison and to despair and to the loss of human dignity and human rights.
Students from Newcastle High read the United Nations Charter on Human Rights. Justice Kirby, a winner of the Australian Human Rights Medal and a member of the World Health Organisation's Global Commission on AIDS, also referred to the increasing role of the UN on the world scene. He said the peacekeeping forces in Macedonia and the troops ensuring that supplies get through in Somalia show that the United Nations is helping shape a new world order in which human rights is a central issue.
We are living in a moment of world history when it is essential to find international solutions, particularly to the problems of human rights, which are problems of humanity and therefore problems of everybody, everywhere.
The two elderly citizens needed an escort en route for a new home at the old Rothbury mine site near Branxton. The locos came out from England 70 years ago and worked in the Hunter hauling coal up until 1983. South Maitland Railways operated 14 of the Class 10 locos in what some have called the magic era of steam. A private owner is building a rail museum at Rothbury, taking his new acquisitions under diesel power for the 20-kilometre trip. The old locos were treated with kid gloves on their first time away from home, needing regular stops for checkups. The museum is expected to be opened within the next 12 months.
Amid the rich Gothic tradition of Christchurch Cathedral this afternoon, the future of 11 Hunter women was set. 280 synod members of the Diocese of Newcastle met to vote on the controversial canon passed in Sydney 2 weeks ago, to ordain women into the priesthood.
May I say that I think the time for debating the matter of such ordination is past. It's not that the matter is just a formality. It's simply now, in my judgment, a matter of justice.
Less than an hour later, that justice prevailed and history was made. The Synod had voted overwhelmingly in favour of women priests for the diocese.
I think it's very significant. I think this has been a long fight. It's been about 20 years or so in the coming, and I think that for the Church it will take us into the 21st century. We will see men and women ministering alongside each other.
The 11 women will be ordained into the priesthood on the 21st of December at Christchurch Cathedral, in a service which is expected to attract well over 1,000 people. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
A quick spray of the courts and it was time to get down to business. These youngsters are competing for a spot in the McDonald's regional tennis squad. Potential squad members squared up against present members. Dax McBurney put Novak Nash through his paces. Dax from Coffs Harbour is already part of the McDonald's program. In the girls, squad hopeful Holly King faced Tanya Matheson from Lismore. The regional squad will be selected later in the week.
Santa made an early appearance this morning, not with his reindeer, but with 112 North Coast bikers. The reason? The inaugural motorcycle toy run from Wingham to Foster. Hundreds of toys for needy families were collected from the public en route to the Tuncurry Salvation Army headquarters. There the toys were unloaded, the roll-up of bikers and amount collected obviously bigger than expected.
To see such a great response is fantastic.
The toys will now be distributed amongst children in the area, making their Christmas a little brighter.
There are lots of kids, lots of needy families at this time of year, and so they're going to get a good surprise.
The push by Newcastle people for local control of the port has been almost as long as the harbour's rich history. But with the election of the Griner state government 4 years ago, a promise was extracted from Sydney to make port autonomy reality.
It was supposed to be in place this year to have complete port autonomy, because at this stage we're semi-autonomous. It's now been put back to 1993.
The Chamber is concerned some of the political momentum for change is being slowed down by bureaucracy in the Sydney office of the Maritime Services Board. Mr Chapman says Newcastle has already lost business to Sydney and Brisbane because the port's role is still largely shaped by the MSB's head office.
It just takes too long to get things to happen when you're part of a much, much bigger body, and the MSB in Sydney obviously doesn't see problems in Newcastle in the same perspective that we see them here.
A spokesman for Transport Minister Bruce Baird says the government is still working towards autonomy for Newcastle Port, but can't put a time on it because there are issues such as implementing a centralised computer system yet to be worked out. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Three-year-old Kaora Power has been in magnificent form of late, recording 11 wins and 4 placings from 17 starts. Young driver Sally Torres has taken the pacer to 6 of those victories, but last night a tough barrier draw made life difficult in the $8,000 Sire Stakes over 2,000 metres. Starfire first, I'm Adam second and Smart Count third, Kaora Power sixth.
It's that special time of year, and people gathered in their thousands to share in the season's spirit of goodwill. As night fell, a fantasy land came alive. There was a spectacular 30-metre Christmas tree, Santa, the Waratah girls and NBN choirs, and of course, the music. As a sea of fairy lights told the story from afar, on the ground there were those creating their own piece of magic. While the spark worked for some, for others it proved troublesome. And for a certain few, the fizz had definitely frazzled. Then for a touch of Christmas Aussie style. And showing styles of their own compares Jeff J from 2HD and NBN newsreader Ray Deneen.
This is the new breed of soccer talent in the Hunter. The basics are still the same, but the outlook is different. These youngsters are getting used to the new professional approach to the sport. From next year, 20 squad members will attend sessions at the camp each day to hone their skills. Funded by the Northern New South Wales Soccer Federation, the camp will be held at the Speed Soccer Centre at Cardiff, and the aim is to bring Newcastle in line with the bigger cities.
We have sports academies in all major cities in Australia, and I don't see why there shouldn't be an institute of sport or a system in the schools where we can train these players in Newcastle.
It's an ambitious plan, but Mr Kaiser is confident the results will be shown.
I would expect anywhere from 2 to 6 of these players will be capable of playing National League at age 18.
And ready to reap the benefits of the program is Breakers coach Bruce Stowell.
I've been looking at 1 or 2 there that certainly there's 1 or 2 out there now that immediately take the eye, but I'd like to get the chance to work with them and see them a little bit more often than I've done at present.
Sydney has a problem. It's growing at a faster rate than projected. To cope, Sydney needs to find alternative growth schemes. The Hunter Economic Development Council and the Chamber of Commerce believe they can help. They've jointly devised a plan to relocate some of Sydney's population to the Hunter, claiming the area has the infrastructure or potential to absorb it.
It would be cheaper for the state government to consider putting additional people into the Hunter to soak up that capacity than to perhaps put them in at Fairfield or Liverpool or Blacktown.
The submission suggests the Lower Hunter has enough housing land to accommodate almost 250,000 additional people over a decade. However, the priority is for jobs-led growth and not simply just shifting people from Sydney. Mr McCallum says the strategy includes suggestions to ensure the Hunter doesn't become a northern suburb of Sydney with exploding unemployment.
Well, I think the state government has to set up policy frameworks whereby the private sector can invest in the Hunter in ways which create jobs faster than perhaps they have created them in the past.
Among the benefits of a larger city, Mr McCallum suggests greater political clout plus increased sporting and cultural facilities. The strategy contains 13 recommendations, among them that state government implement full autonomy to the Port of Newcastle before 1996, its continued commitment to honeysuckle and more health services. The weekend's exercise involved police, EPA and RTA officers carrying out noise and smoke tests on cars, plus checks on their exhaust systems. 90% of cars stopped failed inspection tests. The major infringements, unacceptable levels of exhaust smoke and removal of emission control equipment.
By and large, it is a particular element within the community who deliberately undertake the modifications of their vehicles, and I think that we can, as a result of these sorts of activities, get through to those people that it won't be tolerated.
Mr Dalton says the EPA has the power to fine offenders up to $10,000 for the removal of emission control equipment, and plans are underway to make the noise checks a regular occurrence. Meanwhile, police are in the middle of a week-long operation on the Pacific Highway between Sydney and the Queensland border. The aim is to make the highway a safer place during the Christmas season, and the targets are drink driving, fatigue and speed, plus vehicle roadworthiness. So far, 150 traffic infringements have been issued, 2/3 of those for speeding. The operation will finish on Thursday. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.
From a very localised operation with just 4 employees a decade ago, Hunter Control has now stepped into the international marketplace. The company provides industrial services, such as computerised control systems for Hunter Valley coal mines. And now it's providing the same type of high-tech control system to the Pipawar coal mine and handling facility in India.
Our part in the contract is the complete design, supply and shipment to India and the commissioning and training of the Indian personnel once the system is installed in India.
With the touch of a button and a glance at the screen, the entire operation of a facility that yields 6 million tonnes of coal a year will be controlled by computer, bringing new levels of efficiency to India.
It is quite revolutionary. I think it's a major step forward in technology.
The system Hunter Control is exporting has been developed in the region, and now Mr Duggan believes this contract will help open the international doors for other hunter companies.
Newcastle has been well known for its manufacturing base, but now we're also able to offer an engineering base, and that opens the scope to local manufacture to participate in the control system side of a project as well.
From streets lined with cottages that reflect the city's mining tradition, Cessnock's residential face is about to be modernised. For the first time in 40 years, Cessnock City Council is developing a residential estate along Mount View Road, only a stone's throw from the vineyards. Taking its name from the location, Vineyard Grove will eventually comprise 310 lots and is intended to stimulate the local economy.
We feel that this land adjoining the vineyards is not only a good way of kick-starting the local building industry, but it should also encourage Sydney people to come here to take a look at Cessnock.
The development comes at a time when Cessnock real estate agents have noticed an upward trend in residential sales. Agent Harold Sternbeck says Vineyard Grove is sorely needed, as there's been practically no urban building blocks available in the area. To Mayor Callaghan, Vineyard Grove is part of shaping a city that will draw increasingly large numbers of residents.
Because of the proximity to Sydney, because of the cheapness of our land, it'll be largely a residential area.
Scott Bevan, NBN News.
The normally peaceful scene, a popular swimming hole on Wallace Creek near the old Richmond Main Colliery cooling pond, offered little hint of its hidden dangers. Graham Major was some distance away on the bank while his son Brett, watched by Judy Major, splashed in the shallows that run into deep water holes.
The youngest son's got into trouble and the mother's gone in after him, and they've both come to tragic circumstances.
Apparently the couple's 9-year-old daughter witnessed the tragedy. She ran to tell her father. He dragged his wife and his son's body from the creek before making it to a nearby farm to raise the alarm. Property owner John Foster met the distraught father.
He was very distressed and said his wife and son were in the water, had pulled him out of the water.
And at that stage, do you think there was much that could have been done?
Not in his opinion.
By the time help arrived, there was nothing that could be done. Paramedics flown from Newcastle confirmed the deaths. A padlocked gate usually blocks vehicle access to the swimming hole on old mining land, but the spot is frequented by locals, most usually aware of the changing creek conditions.
The rain we've had, I'd say it could get tricky at times, yes. There's deep holes that eventuate that may not have been there before.
Graham Major and his daughter are being treated for shock. Andrew Lobb reporting, NBN News.
No sooner had the ink dried on Macloy's agreement to buy 170 hectares of land at Green Point last month than the Belmont developer was facing protests from Lake Macquarie aldermen and residents wanting the land for a bush park. But in the face of that opposition, Macloy's has submitted 2 development applications to council, one for a 40-cabin tourist resort at the Belmont end of the land and the other for aged care units and a hostel on the Valentine side.
Well, they're obviously consistent with the permissible uses under the zoning, and they are uses which are commercially viable, which we can develop.
In addition to a desire to actually build the facilities, the company has lodged the DAs to force the whole issue of Green Point to a head, to ensure the controversy over what to do with the land doesn't drag on for as long into the future as it has until now. But today the council sent this letter to Macloy's explaining that preparation of a draft local environmental plan is underway and Mayor Doug Carley doesn't want any development to proceed until the plan is finished.
we're asking the Macloy companies that they don't compromise our intentions to eventually bring Greenpoint into public ownership.
While Alderman Carley says the development would affect the council's moves to buy the land, Macloy's asserts the facilities would take up only 3% of the property. Although Mr Howard says the company intends to lodge more development applications for Greenpoint early next year. Scott Bevan, NBN News.
Traffic congestion in the cities and towns peaked as last-minute Christmas shoppers took to the streets. Police, ambulance and tow truck drivers were kept busy with a number of collisions. Traditionally, though, the horror smashes occur out on the open road. Federal member for Shortland, Peter Morris, says that's where police should be concentrating on the prevention of smashes rather than pouring resources into speed traps and minor traffic infringements in built-up areas.
It is a straight-out revenue gathering or traffic taxing exercise to a large extent. And the pity of that is it undermines so much of the other good work that's done in educating drivers to perform better and educating people to the hazards of the road.
Police were out in force at Hexham, north of Newcastle this afternoon, carrying out breath testing, speeding and seatbelt checks. But they'll also be maintaining a high profile in Operation Safe Arrival over the holiday period, especially on notorious north coast stretches of the Pacific Highway and the New England Highway.
The main aim is for people to take their time and have patience while they're travelling in traffic.
Fatigue is one of the notorious factors on the roads over the holiday periods.
It certainly is. Plan your trip and have your breaks every 2 hours.
For children everywhere, the waiting was over. The special day had arrived and the man in the red suit had delivered the goods to those he had promised. In the Newcastle area, the hot conditions kept most people inside, although some ventured out into the sizzling temperatures to cool off. For some, the day was confined to the hospital bed. Major surgery for Mary Ann Cowan brought a drastic change to her normal Christmas celebrations.
Terribly different. I've been right away from everybody. It's been very, very hard for me.
In New England, festivities started early with a special Christmas Eve concert beamed out to Tamworth's sister city in England. The concert featured local talent from Australia's country music capital, and it was a chance to share a little Christmas from the other side of the world.
It's completely white, a white Christmas.
You are having a white Christmas.
Yes, indeed.
In Lismore, a traditional Christmas luncheon was served at the soup kitchen. With Santa on staff to keep a watchful eye, good food and company was enjoyed by all 75 guests who shared in the Christmas spirit. Santa was also on duty at Taree, keeping guard while retailers took some breathing space, recovering from this year's record sales. And in Port Macquarie, tourists settled into the caravan parks. It was a big day for wombats at Coffs Harbour Zoo. The furry animals thought all their Christmases had come at once when they moved into their new home, complete with landscape gardens. The specially designed enclosure is part of the zoo's new look for visitors. But the true meaning of Christmas was celebrated in churches across the country, the birth of Jesus Christ, a sign of hope and life to all. The generation gap between Catherine Maud St Clair and 12-month-old great-great-grandniece Jessica spans more than a century. After 110 years of birthdays, the former Melbourne postmistress, who retired at the age of 79, has become accustomed to all the attention. Affectionately known as Kit, she's believed to be Australia's oldest citizen.
Just live from day to day as an ordinary person.
Joined by family and friends at the Shoal Bay nursing home, the cutting of the cake, heavy with candles, has become a regular affair. This year, Kit was also joined by her 98-year-old brother Hugh, proud of his sister's longevity. Celebrating her birthday so close to Christmas is a burden Kit says she's learned to live with.
It's always been a bit of a hangover sort of thing.
Police say the two vehicles collided on Buckets Way, 25 kilometres south of Gloucester, around 8:30 this morning. The 60-year-old male driver of the Ford sedan died instantly. A 6-day-old baby boy passenger was thrown from his capsule. He was flown with his mother, also a passenger, to the John Hunter Hospital by the rescue helicopter. A 16-month-old girl and the driver of the other vehicle, a 21-year-old woman from Swansea, were taken to Gloucester Hospital suffering minor injuries.
It was the game the Breakers had been waiting for, and although Brisbane United had an early chance, it was the home side who had the goal-scoring hoodoo, not Newcastle. The Breakers threatened early. And then finally the drought broke. Jason Pollack scoring after neat passing in front of the goalmouth. Skipper Andy Koska had the smell of victory and made no mistakes from this cross. In the second stanza, Pollack found the net again, signalling the end to the Breakers' woes. This goal by John Kosh and another by Warren Spink took the score to 5-0, doubling the team's tally for the season. There was little sign of the jubilation at Mitre 10 Stadium today as the players took a rest day. But Breakers boss Dave Maguire says the win is an important one.
Well, I think it proves to the players they can do it and they can achieve it. What they've got to now do is prove it in front of the home crowd, and that's the most important aspect from my point of view and from the players' point of view, and we want to really entertain the people here next Friday night.
It was a passing motorist who raised the alarm near midnight. Fire units from Branxton and Talara, as well as 3 neighbouring volunteer brigades, rushed to the Greta supermarket located on the New England Highway. Crews worked for some hours before bringing the blaze under control. Overhead power lines were cut to prevent another hazard. This morning, police and fire investigation units inspected the smouldering remains, showing the full extent of the blaze. A nearby 2-storey property, recently refurbished, suffered smoke and water damage. The 3-bedroom residence attached at the rear of the supermarket was severely damaged. Police say the property was in the process of being sold, the new owner taking over in the new year. It's believed the blaze started in the back storeroom. The crime scene unit are treating the circumstances as suspicious.
We haven't been able to come up with anything that would prove it not to be suspicious. So at this stage, we can't really say anything further.
Melinda Smith, NBN News.
It was invitation only today, but judging by the field, organisers had filled the book. More than 80 boats lined up in perfect conditions, although light winds early delayed the start. Once the fleet got away, there was no shortage of action. The youngsters taking every opportunity to test their skills and equipment, pushing their craft to the limit. Competing in the 420 and 470 Olympic class, the young sailors will battle each other in a state-by-state system for the next week, with the official race starting tomorrow. It's also a chance to impress the national selectors, who will be choosing a male and female team to contest the World Cup next year.
It's the final rehearsal for these students of the Australian Dance and Talent Centre at Cardiff. All aged between 10 and 18, the group is set to entertain American audiences with 5 one-hour shows, one possibly at Disneyland. All performances will comprise song and dance routines ranging from classical and jazz to tap. The 22-day trip is a cultural exchange, giving the group an opportunity to experience American dance culture and school life. It's also a chance to display precision dancing like this, for which Australia is famous. Catherine Lamond, NBN News.